Hello, hello.
Hello,
Hi,
Welcome, Stefan, to our show
Stefan.
today.
thanks for having me.
Happy
And
to.
welcome back, Adrian. Like you've been on vacation for forever.
For
So it's
forever.
it's great to have you back on the stream once more on our
Weren't we
regular
streaming
schedule.
last week? We were, isn't it?
I was streaming on Friday, and while you were already on vacation, and you were
Ah,
and you were technically streaming from vacation on Wednesday already.
so it wasn't away. Okay, so we have a guest today, and I'm very happy about that because I know Stefan already from several podcasts when I actually started to listen to podcasts some years ago. And I think you were on a German podcast called Programmierbar.
Yes.
And I was actually quite interested in what you have to say back then. Um, and Adrian Kodia is just saying 5 days is forever. Yeah, so thank you for that feedback. It's true. Sometimes it feels like that, but let's get back to topic. So, Stefan, you are a CTO for quite a long time, and you were basically part of some companies, some very named companies, especially in Germany. But I think one of them is eBay, and eBay is quite known, I think. Um, so maybe you explain a little bit who you are, and what you are actually doing right now, and why are you here today, actually. So maybe just go ahead and go introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay. Um, so about me, I'm a coder, uh, more or less. I started coding 40 years ago. As a kid, I wanted to write video games, so I decided to teach myself coding. So I became a coder, wrote some video games. Then, sometime later, worked in some startups. Became an engineering manager quite early, so I have much more experience being an engineering manager than being an engineer, actually. Um, Founded some startups on my own, worked at some time at Immobilien Scout. They hired me to help them with some consultants and with other people internally to introduce Scrum. Um, was later worked for an eBay daughter company in Germany, and ended up after my wife sold her startup, ended up being a CTO coach. So 25 years, something like that. Engineering manager, still coding. That's more or less me.
Yeah, I know that coding part. On some point in time, no, actually not at some point in time. When once you have this fascination for creating things with a computer, I think um,
Yeah,
you never lose it, especially
yeah,
not when you have it in child days. So I have a roughly similar story. I think you're a little bit older than me, but I
yeah.
started with 8 with an Amiga 5. No, with a C64. Sorry, I started with a C64. So I don't know, 20, 33 years or something like that. Um, and yes, this fascination is actually something which carries you throughout the, let's say, decades after as well. And I never lost it, so I'm still sometimes like a little child when I see new technology. I can't get my fingers off it, even though I should do some CTO stuff, in my opinion. But I can't, it's hard to take the fingers entirely off the keyboard at some point. And maybe this is some form of sickness, but I really like it. So it's part of the geekism we had, I think, from our childhood. I think Dennis is the same for you, right? So you have started early as well.
Yeah, I think I was coding my first games at like age 6, age 7. Like they just gave me a computer, and I just, as soon as I learned to read and write, I was coding. I was sort of pressing buttons on my Commodore 64, and then later on, I mean, I knew how to code. I just didn't know what the letters meant. So I knew how to change a program, load it, buffer it, rewrite it to some like so I could execute commands. I could like, change a basic program to do something else. But I just knew the sequence of events and what to change and where to change
Yeah.
it and what to change it to and what shape the symbol on the button is to press it. I didn't know what it meant. I knew how to pronounce it slowly, but that understanding came much later. But I was competing until the age of 15. I think I was on coding competitions, um, logical coding, Pascal, Logo, things like
Who
that.
remember what this was? I have that in my mind still. I can still
Yeah.
pronounce it because I learned, and I as a child I called it Load,
Load. Yeah, Load.
8,1 in German, right? This is
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
remember in my head. But what was that? Anyone in the audience knows that? Type it in the comments. Or even maybe I mixed it throughout the years, but this is
No.
how I remember it.
But but mostly it's L Shift O, which then is like I don't think on the C64 you needed to type load. I think it might be LO, like L, and then it creates a strange symbol. I think. Not sure if I mixed some things up. Might be
It's long ago.
on the VIC-20. But I've done the same thing like I did on the C64 on the VIC-20 poke. Type in some pokes, do some stuff, magic. You type poke and a number, and then something magic happens. No clue what I was doing. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so today we're talking about CTO stuff. So we called this episode CTOism because especially on LinkedIn, we see a lot of things and topics going on when it comes about what to do as a CTO, how to act, what is your role actually, what is a fraction of CTO maybe, and is it actually the same as a CTO? How is the CTO in small and larger companies? Those kind of topics we wanted to talk today about, and we would really love to talk about with you about that because you are very experienced in that case. You saw a lot in different companies in different roles, and until today you actually support other CTOs. This is what you do right now in order to really coach them to become or be a CTO or better CTO in this case. So this is the rough agenda. So I will guide us through this agenda today. And for everyone, before we going to start, you can watch this on YouTube and Twitch, right? So Dennis, maybe you could pass the links in the LinkedIn comment, because
I'm
sometimes people. Yeah, we are actually not very successful on Twitch, but it is like on YouTube.
It is a good alternative. Like YouTube has been, since the anti-ad block thing started happening, people were complaining. LinkedIn quality isn't always the best on mobile, and Twitch has a much easier sort of high fidelity option than YouTube. So there's different reasons for different people. So we figured these three platforms are sort of covering everybody's needs. So if you have an itch that only one platform can give, then feel free to swap over. Adrian, let's jump into the topic while I'll share the links on LinkedIn.
So first topic for today is, what does it truly mean to be in CTO in reality, right? So there are a lot of ideas out there what a CTO is. I think in reality there are multiple ideas of what let's say an expression what a CTO really is in a company, especially when it comes to very small companies, to mid-sized companies, and large companies. I think those roles are very different. But first of all, maybe treat that as good tests in software development. Just touch a single point right now and focus on that one. So Stefan, what would you say is a real CTO?
So I think there are two things for me for the CTO, and it's not about the title. I think it's a role, and the role has two characteristics for me. The first characteristic is that you're interacting with business. You're the person responsible for aligning and interacting with business, technology and business. You're the ambassador for technology towards business, and you're the ambassador for business towards developers, towards technology. So that's one characteristic for me for the role. And the second characteristic for the role is you can't bubble up things. So up until some point, you can always bubble up a problem. You're a developer, you bubble up to the senior. You're a senior, you bubble up to the lead, and so on and so on. But you're the CTO role, you're the person who can't bubble up stuff. The CEO expects you to solve everything that's in your department. That's why you're hired, and you can't bubble up. I mean, you can bubble up some budget topics or but in general, technical topics and stuff. There is no one to bubble up. Everything ends with you. And that's for me are the defining characteristics of being a CTO. And so I don't care if you're a director of engineering or a VP of engineering. If you can't bubble up things and you're the main responsible person interacting with, aligning with business, then you're the CTO.
That's a very good thing. And what two things
very
come to my
helpful.
mind? Yeah, two things come to my mind. When you sit on the weekends there and fix the problems, no one else can. You are the CTO. No. The second one is that's actually one of the truth in small startup CTOs. It's like that, and it will always be. And the other thing is that you really pointed out it's about a responsibility and a form of ownership in that moment. So if you want to connect this business and technology area, right? You translate between those two worlds, and you want to make sure that the tech is actually working and fulfilling those things. You are actually in that position. This is normally just a single person in a company, in most companies I know, and it must not be a full-time role, which means that especially when you just have a 10 people company, it's probably not a full-time role to translate all day long those things. It is more a role you have next to another role, which could be, which is often the case, the engineering management is the same. So where you really take care of the tech department on the, let's say, tactical and operational level, not so much on the strategic level where the business is settled. I would now have the question to you, if this resonates with you, or you think, oh no, if you are a CTO, you only do the CTO stuff. What do you think?
I think I think you should only do you should do a combination of what you enjoy and the CTO stuff. So this is a union of these are the things you enjoy, this is CTO stuff, this is what you do. Usually you don't do that. You often people don't do what they enjoy. They delegate that. That's, I think, is a mistake. And on the other hand, they do too many things. The CTO usually does everything no one else wants to do. So a lot of stuff happens and ends up with the CTO. So what I would say is, in an ideal world, perhaps yes, what I said, plus the joy. In reality, everything no one else is caring about is what you're caring about. And then it's then the challenge is to delegate everything that's not really in your role. And you need to think about what's in my role and what's not, and what should I delegate and what should I keep close to myself.
That's actually interesting. You say what you enjoy. So that's probably a question for a little bit later, for example, for the small to large size businesses. The larger the company gets, I think the less you can pick what to do and what you enjoy, actually. So maybe there's some stuff going on you don't enjoy.
I disagree, but
yeah, okay, go ahead. Go. Okay, I saved that for later. I note that for me. Small, mid, enjoy. So that's actually a good point. Okay, and Dennis, what do you think about that? So you have a lot to do with CTOs, actually. Maybe not on the business strategic level, but on the tactical aspect. So what do you think about it?
Well, it's interesting that Stefan should mention that sort of enjoyment bit, because I agree. I'm more in that camp. I'm always trying to. They always come to me with like these emergencies, and I don't coach CTOs on purpose. I coach leaders in tech, and oftentimes they're CTOs in they're the person who can't bubble up, but they haven't explicitly chosen the CTO title per se. They've just fallen into that. Maybe the person that used to bubble up the problem too left, and now they're that person, or maybe they were never there, or maybe the bubbling up was a product problem, and then when the company grew, the product and the technology side split, and then the bubble up person disappeared, or they've absorbed the product bubble. They become the go-to person for everything, product, marketing, and engineering, and those are usually the kinds of clients I work with. And I agree with Stefan. It's really important that you at least know what you enjoy, so that it is available to you, so that you make yourself available to maybe pair with somebody. If you can't exclusively do that, maybe to pair with somebody or maybe to help them learn or help them grow, or just to share your enthusiasm. When you're onboarding new people on, like, new managers, especially new senior personnel, new tech leads onto your team, sometimes it's best to just pair in areas or have meetings in areas or have strategic discussions in areas where you just enjoy doing it, so that they get to experience your passion. Because if they get the feeling that you understand what it is they're doing, plus experience your passion, I think that's the best mix for a good chemistry in a growing company, where culture fit vertically, especially on the management side, is very important. Usually we only talk about culture fit on the bottom, and it's not really that scalable. So yeah, regarding the CTO role, I often end up in this, what kind of CTO are you? Are you this kind of CTO? Or is it this kind of business, that kind of? Is it tech and product, just tech, just engineering? Is it more IT related, more security related, and process related? So yeah, I think that, to me, what I already learned was very helpful. Stefan, you're a CTO if you just can't bubble up problems to anyone. I really like that simple, very down to earth explanation.
I'm a simple guy, so
yeah, but it's really helpful. It immediately, I could immediately feel that it's, I guess, it's like that's the core, like, of all the things that could define the CTO, that is usually the core litmus test. Like, yeah, you're at the top of the food chain, and if you don't teach people how to back pressure and sort of self-organize, then all the problems go up to you, and then you're fighting the lack of, you need to teach them how to create pressure valves so that they know what to bring to you and what not to bring to you. Otherwise, you just have this constant boiling problem of bubbles. So yeah,
I have three kinds of customers, basically. Those that came too early, those that come to me at the right time, and those that come to me too late. And from those that come too late, usually it's a combination of not delegating enough and having no fun, no choice.
Delegating the wrong things. Yeah.
I usually can't help, sadly.
Yeah. How long does it take you to figure out which one they are?
Usually it's in the first session when we talk about things. I feel like the too early is a very simple test for me. Like, if you have 3 developers or something, that's too early. Then you want to premature optimize your career or something. That's too early. I think when you have, there might be exceptions, or there are exceptions for sure, but in general, if you have 3 developers, you don't have enough problems to talk to a coach. You can do whatever you like. You can't screw up. So that's easy. And if someone is too late, usually I see that because they come with a problem. Like, they are near dropping out of the role or something like that. So they want to leave, or they want to. So they are already in some kind of personal crisis.
Cost reduction, risk management. Yes. It's mostly limiting fallout. Yeah.
Too much stuff to do. Like, I had one who years ago who had the tech zoo was so large that he felt he could no longer control the tech zoo. He could not structure things, take away technology to reduce the complexity, because whenever he wanted to take something away, there was a lot of resistance from developers, and then the situation, he quit. So that was something, I'd say, too late. I could have helped a year earlier, perhaps, but yeah. And often they miss joy, so that's to tie that in.
I imagine that. So you go for a coaching and you are, let's say, full of hope that someone's helping you, and say,
no, I do my best. No, I do my best. It's just like, I do really do my best, but.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's often, let's say, very. We have specific German words for that. So on some point, it's like you can't really do anything anymore. Or even if it takes quite a long time to do so. And oftentimes what the problem with the CTO, and we come to that as well, is the CTO is an accountable person, which means that as soon as you grow, you have capabilities others don't have, right? So an engineering manager can decide some stuff in tech, right? Some stuff regarding teams. The CTO does have a lot of impact when it comes to strategic decisions. So if you mess up those strategic decisions for a while because you don't realize that you actually make strategic decisions, for example, and then you have done so much broken things to you, to yourself, to your clients and customers, and you have implemented, let's say, bad practices and stuff you can't revert easily, then it's actually very hard. Yeah,
and that's a very important point, Adrian. I think. Sorry for jumping in, but that's I think that's a very, very important point. Is that's something that I wish more CEOs would understand. Like, I think I thought a lot, and I might be wrong with a lot of things because I'm not a genius. So, but I nevertheless I thought a lot about these things over the last 20 years, and I think one distinction between being the CTO of something and being the head of marketing. And I have close relation to marketing, so marketing is always my example. But if there is a campaign that runs bad, you do another campaign. So if you do not screw up the brand totally, probably the campaigns you've done last year are not impacting what you do now. But for a CTO, what you have done last year is impacting you every day. Like you made a bad technology choice. There you had some shortcuts, code quality is down, you're not running tests, whatever you did last year is highly impacting your work now and the developer experience and everything around you. So everything you do is not easily reversible. Whereas when you work in marketing, everything is easy. I mean, it might cost you something, you might have lost $500,000 or something, yes. And if the company goes bankrupt because of that, yeah. But usually marketing is kind of easily reversible if you do not screw up a crisis or something. But in tech, nothing is easily reversible. And everything you did in the last 5 years, you choose the wrong database or you made some bad decisions about some technology 5 years ago, that's impacting you every day. And that's something I think this distinction between reversibility is something I think CEOs do not understand enough. And I think that's also the main reason that CTOs are always, perhaps wrongly, but always perceived as too timid and too anxious and, and too but what about that? What about that? And, they're not yes people. I wrote a book and there's one point in say yes more often. I tell CTOs to tell yes more often, but the reason why they tell no so often or find problems is that they have to live with decisions and technology and everything is for the next 5 years. It's not easily reversible.
That's actually a very good point. I think one of the first videos I created on LinkedIn was hidden strategic decisions, because I made a lot of them. And the problem with the hidden part is it's hidden from yourself. And you don't know in that moment that you actually make something very impactful. And you think, and you have this notion in startups very often, I hear that very often, hey, we can always change later. No, you can't. You are building foundational things. The CTO is working at the top of the pyramid with the business, but acting on the foundational part of the pyramid, which means you are providing the framework for everyone else. You can't just change it because everyone else is building their stuff, their operational stuff up on that. So you can't just say, but we don't use that anymore right now. So if you, for example, as a CTO, you make the decision on some point, I saw that very often in agencies, we go with something like Magento or something like that. And we want to go with that. And after 2 years, you figure out that wasn't a good choice maybe for our business case. You can't just reverse that, right? You need to live with what you have created in that moment. And maybe you can open up a new branch, which will cause for the moment more trouble than you would have put more energy in the very beginning to make a better assessment, a determination, what you actually need, and understand things like requirements, non-functional requirements, and context, business context, and try to align that. And this is what, where I come to the conclusion oftentimes that the CTOs, especially the very new CTOs, aren't actually CTOs. They are still engineers trying to figure out some decision-making stuff. But in reality, you need to to understand very early on that everything you do has a long and impactful thing.
Yes.
Yeah, a long-term impact, actually.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think that's kind of being responsible, like thinking about the person that coming up, the CTO after you. What do you inherit them? So yes.
You run away and you don't want to tell anyone that you actually have done this.
It depends on your ethics. Like it's a topic that's not often discussed in CTO circles is ethics. But yes.
I think we already have done a little bit of topic 2, which is decision making.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone in the audience, we have some people in the audience, if you have any questions, write them down. No matter on which platform you are, we will show the question and we will discuss those questions. Just ask anything. You can ask us anything. It's always an AMA session, actually. Okay, so decision making. When it comes to decision making, what would you give as a general advice for, let's say, aspiring CTOs and stuck CTOs, I would say, because the successful CTOs are probably done quite successful stuff, but for everyone else who's going into that role maybe, and the second thing is who got stuck. When it comes to decision making, what kind of tips and tricks and advices do you have in general? What comes to your mind?
Very long time ago, I came up with the point that with the idea that most development time is lost before development starts. So it's not like so there is like 50% is before development and 50% is development, and everyone looks at development and doesn't focus on pre-development. So often CEOs come to me and say, Stefan, this needs to be done in 2 weeks, and then I tell them, well, if you had made the decision 6 months ago, this would already be online. So the reason why it's not online is because the decision has not been made 6 months ago. And this is what I see over and over again, that decisions are not made fast enough. And I thought of myself as very clever. And then I read in one of the Reinertsen books, there is this graphic which says the same thing. And I thought, okay. And the book is from 1980s or something. So I thought, didn't come up with something new. So I think that the most important thing about decisions as a company, not only as a CTO, but as a company, and as a CTO, you should remember that you're part of the executive team. You're part of being responsible for the whole company as part of the executive team. You're no longer the alpha techie, the alpha nerd. Yeah, that's one of the roles, but you're also part of the executive team. Mm-hmm. And the best thing a company can do is have fast decisions. I think that's something that distinguishes also successful companies from not successful. Should not be too fast. Like you should think about things, have information, gather information. But if you have everything in place, make the decision.
Don't hesitate.
And don't kick the can down the road. Like this when I was at the company CTO management meeting, new CEO, agenda done. We didn't make some decisions. We said, yeah, let's make the decision next week. The next management week, we need more information. Think about it, blah blah blah. And then the new CEO said, I think you have all the information. So no one is leaving before we make the decision. And then we made a decision. And that was it. Like from then on, all decisions was made that way. Do we have all the information? Do we need more information? If not, we make the decision now. And making decision is kind of often problematic because before you make a decision, there is this fantasy future. Everything can happen. It's much easier to have a bright golden future if you don't make decision because everything can happen. And as soon as you make a decision, A, you're responsible for your decision, and B, this what could happen future collapses into one real future and cuts off some of your options. You become focused. That's scary. And so this is a lot of reasons people do not make decisions and kick down the road. And so what my biggest advice would be: make decisions if you have all the information.
Yeah. I think this has something to do with the human resistance as well, because no human likes change. Especially not a form of change where we really change, right? And if you as a CTO, so it's one thing if a normal engineer, let's say an individual contributor, wants to change a little bit the way he or she is working is a different thing because it's very personal. Then a CTO is changing the faith of a company with 30 to 50 to 100 people or more, and says then, okay, we are now switching everything into that direction. And that is, of course, let's say this drives up your pulse a little bit, I would say. And of course, we have a lot of rejection and fear and anxiety to do those things. But on some point, I think this is the real thing which makes a CTO or not, is if you can make those decisions. This is what I would like to add. And if you can handle and overcome this resistance, being a pro, live with that and don't overreact if something is going wrong or maybe not into the direction as it was supposed to be, so that you stay or be or keep the capability to actually make changes on the go, so that you have created something, an environment, or as well, this is the reason why I'm talking so much about the cultural aspects, because the cultural aspects will decide if you are still agile on that journey or not. So if you, for example, sell an idea to the business stakeholders who actually pay for that stuff, and you are the executive part, which is actually responsible for doing that, and you make it too rigid because you sold them an idea which is hard to achieve and was actually some form of fantasy, you were not thinking about that, and you're just, a little bit of Wild West style doing this decision, and then you realize, oh, I told them for this amount of money and in this amount of time we can do that, but it's actually impossible. How can I change it now? So you need to make sure that you tell everyone that you have a goal. Don't know exactly how we will get there, but we will figure out in an agile way. So this is how I experience that. And let's say I learned that very late in my career as CTO. I learned it the hard way. And
I learned
it costs a lot of
money.
money.
The hard way.
Yeah,
sadly.
That's actually it, right?
But I wanted to point what you said. I think that's very, very true. People, also something that I see not only in technology, but in general, I'm also talking to a lot of founders and help founders and things. And people, managers often think a decision is an event. Like, this is the decision, this is an event. But a decision is not an event, it's a process. You need to come up to the point of the decision, make the decision. And it doesn't end with making the decision. A decision, usually people focus too much on making a good decision, but then fail on execution. Like the founder, a CEO might think for 2 months about something, new strategy or something. And then she comes up with a strategy and thinks, well, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant technology, and management board, everything is on board. Everyone is happy. And then there's an all hands, and then the decision is communicated. Like, this is our new strategy. And then too many people think, and their mistake is happening. That's it. I tell people this is the decision, so go ahead and do it. But the problem is, like, and there's this book, The Art of Action, which is, I think, mostly about this, is the decision. The easy thing is coming up with the decision. It's hard for making the decision for all the reasons we said, but then you need to execute on the decision. You need to handhold, repeat the decision, explain the decision, come back to the decision, adapt it if needed. That the hard work starts after making the decision in the rollout. And it's not magically happening in your company just because you declare, it's not like a king. It's not that you're standing on a balcony and say, I, the king, declare my decision is, I don't know, we get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day now. And then everyone will get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. If you're a king, and if people get killed, if you don't do that, if they don't follow your orders, that's probably working. But if you're a CEO or CTO and get up on the balcony and say, my decision is blah, 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 that has no effect, basically. Not the effect you're intended to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, yeah.
It's actually a start of a journey, and you are one of those persons who need to make sure that the people on the journey are actually following the shared goals, the mission, and you need to constantly nurture that. Nurture. You are ambassador.
You said decision. Not only in general, but also about that one decision. Like, explain the decision, why it's good. Mm-hmm. People should follow it, and you come back to the decision again and again and again to make it impactful. Otherwise, your decision might not have the impact
the ambassador idea you mentioned in the beginning. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Dennis, you want to say something? You look like that. I know that.
I mean, I have many things to say, but I'm liking Stefan's train of thought here. Maybe just on the aspect of a question, Stefan, regarding that resistance, or rather that art of action, the book you mentioned. How do you balance the execution of one decision, compared to many decisions? Do you gradually teach people how you make decisions, like your particular style of decision making, your particular leadership style, and then you nurture them into sort of following in a certain way? Or do you prefer that to be sort of detached and follow more organizational methodologies? Like how do you incorporate a CTO's, a leader's personality into that action taking space, into that execution space?
Not enough companies I worked for, and basically eBay was the only one. I worked for, had a decision-making framework in place, and said that's the way decisions happen in this company. Everywhere else, it's just implicit. And I think the most important thing in the direction of what you're asking is, I'm transparent. I try to be as transparent as possible how decisions are made. Like I inform myself, and then I make the decisions, or the team makes the decision, or what's the mode of decision making. Be transparent. Otherwise, for example, like I might have a meeting, I'm not transparent, and everyone in the meeting thinks they are part of the decision making just because they are in a decision meeting. But I might be the one who makes the decision, and then everyone is angry because they are not involved in the decision. They are, but they're not angry if I explain it to them. And it might be wrong that I make the decision, but as an example, it's important that people know how decisions are made and what's the culture and why this is happening. That's something I start with, and because usually there's no framework in place, I do it my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I try to push down decisions as much as possible, down always in the way of not in any. Like people are not down and up. It's not up and down.
Delegating power in a particular direction.
To make this, who have more information. Like in the past, in the very beginning of being a CTO or an engineering leader, I thought I'm responsible, so I make the decisions. And that overwhelmed me. And also looking back, the decisions were not the best. They were not a bad decision. They were good decisions, but they were not like excellent decisions. It was not someone who made excellent decision. It's just a good decision, the good and the good. And so I tried, when understanding this, I tried to push decisions to people who have more information than me. And so when someone comes up to me and asks, what should I do? I usually ask people, what would you do? That's my standard response to I should make a decision. No, make you a decision. And the person who put me on this track is essentially for some time I reported to the eBay CEO of Germany, Stefan Zoll, and I think he's a great manager, one of my role models. And there was this model like about a logo discussion, and people went to the CEO and thought, make a decision about the new logo. And he said, well, you're the executive team. You have been in a rebranding for 6 months. Why don't you make the decision? You make the decision. I've seen CEOs who decide the color of the floor tiling or stuff, but there I came to a manager who said, no, that's your topic. You're highly paid. You're qualified. You make the decision. And I thought that was really transforming in a way.
That's actually a cool point. That was a good insight, actually. We don't hear often on LinkedIn. I was really thinking about that right now because what you give us right now is real insight of what happened during the time when you were in such a role or were you guiding such a role. And people don't. So let's say the stuff which is discussed on LinkedIn is oftentimes very, let's say, on the surface, but not under the surface. So basically where it actually counts or where it happens. And this is I just wanted to tell that just is very interesting for me right now to hear your experience. We have a lot of overlap. Several stuff I haven't, of course, experienced myself, but there is a lot of overlap. And I think this is very important to learn for CTOs, aspiring CTOs, who are on the verge to become one. and don't make those or have those things in mind when you make your decisions yourself, because it is actually not a nice thing. Will be the part, I think it is the next topic, but we're going through the questions now. No, it's not. It's then with accountability and liability. There are some other aspects to it. When you really mess it up, it can fire back at you, but this will come later. So Stefan and Dennis, I think we should go through the comments right now. So we have already three feedback comments.
Cool.
And Thomas 1 is LinkedIn user here, but it's Thomas actually, asks, give us 3 examples for the hardest decisions you did as a CTO, and especially why was it hard for you in that case? 3 what?
For me,
yeah, for you.
I forget so many things, because of the gray hair. I forgot most of the stuff I've done. Difficult decisions. One of the most difficult decisions I always have is firing people. That comes like whenever I need to fire someone, and not lay off. Layoff is also difficult. It was very difficult who to lay off when their money is tight. Someone comes to me like. At one point, a head of HR called me at a conference. I was at a conference, called me and said, Stefan, we need to lay off half of your department. Who should you lay off? And so that's very hard. But layoff is usually pushed on you. So it's hard, but it's pushed on you. Whereas firing is something, and it ties in a little bit to the decision we discussed before. I postpone it because I think things will get better. I dread the decision. I dread firing someone. I don't like it. I know the person fired has a much worse experience than I have. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, I dread it. And so whenever I have to fire someone or laying off, that was very difficult for me, and I postponed that decision. Then another difficult decision, I think, is when you're like in the beginning. He said something, making the right decisions in the beginning. I think I made bad decisions or postponed decisions again because I thought there's too much business pressure now, and there will be a golden place in the future when we have an investment. When I as always have. It's not in any way. You know how I mean that, not derogatory to the people. But if I have more developers, then we can do this and this and this. The team can do this and this. So I postpone stuff into the future, hard decisions in the future when there is less pressure. But it's obviously a mistake, because there's never less pressure. There's always too much pressure. And several times, one time in particular, we had a very bad technology in the core of the system, which was not scaling, which was taking the website offline, and like making the decision on, yes, we replace it now. We're not fixing it. Like, the company is growing, rapidly growing. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of traffic growth. And then can we keep this system by fixing it, or do we need to replace it? And then also, again, I probably made the decision too late to replace it. That's also a very hard decision. With what to replace, it's unknown. You're under full pressure of growth, and you should replace it with a different technology. And in the end, we replaced it with Redis. But that was also a very hard decision. What's your hardest decision, Adrian or Dennis?
My hardest decision. Dennis, do you want to go first, or?
I mean, to me, it's clear. Like, it's firing people. Like, it's always, especially if I hired them. If there was no chain of command in between, like, I hired them and it was a bad decision, and now they're either something changed about the culture of the company, and now sort of we influenced their behavior that made sort of them detract, or we need somebody who can like quickly refocus on something else. But they said they committed to this one thing, and the company changed, and they don't want to change with us. Like, that's always hard, because it's a completely, unless it's layoffs, and I've never had to lay off anybody in like a very massive way. But I'm usually in the tech lead space. I'm usually making these decisions one-on-one. So it usually comes down to, can I really not work with this person? Like, is this a failure in mentoring? Was this a hiring problem? You know, and I really hyper analyze it, try to sort of bring it back to me, maybe attribute blame to myself in the hopes that there is a simple solution to it. And that sort of gut-wrenching introspection, over-analysis can just lead me to delay that decision for way too long, and then it becomes a problem. So yeah, that's definitely the hardest decision.
Okay, so for me, so firing, of course, firing is very heavy, but layoffs for me as well, because actually all the time I was CTO and stakeholder, so business owner in that case, so at least partly. And so layoffs where it's not like you said, hey, it's coming, or it was, put down on you. So it was a task given by someone else. For me, it's a little bit different. So I messed up in that case, at least partly, on the business side as well.
You're HR.
I'm HR, so of course sometimes it's the client, but you should always this meteorite theory, it can always hit someone, and you haven't done anything about that. And it's a little bit about the idea of how can you prevent those things? But actually, since you all both have already mentioned that, I have a different one, and my hardest decision was actually to say no on some point. So you have, or actually I have some ethics as CTO, so I can do specific things, and I treat people in a specific way. I have in my mind a specific culture, and as long as I'm an accountable and reliable person, I want to have, let's say, the power to change those things, to shape those things, or actually not those things in detail, but the frame for that. And if I am not allowed anymore to do those things because other stakeholders might contradict that and try to go more for the agency style approach or for other approaches, which is often like ignoring IT or seeing IT as in fulfillment department, which I totally dislike, or the total startup idea of, hey, we are totally investment driven and we just have a fake CTO role. Those kind of things I don't like. And I had a particular thing with the first one, and that was to actually say no on some point to business partners, that I don't want to go this way anymore with those people, and I want to do it my way. Because I think that there should be an ethical side to what you do on a decision-making area as well. And this is where I had my hardest, because this decision took me way too long to make. And that was my hardest decision so far, right? Yeah.
If you grow as a CTO, I always think you should come to a point where you say, we're doing it this way, because this is way, I think it's the best way to do it this way. We should do it this way. Not towards the tech, but towards business. And if they think that's not the way to do it, not the way to do tech like this, then they would need to look for another CTO. Then I'm not the person. And it's totally fine that they come up with some other mental model about how technology should work. It's then just me that I'm not the right guy to implement their model. So yeah, I think for me it was more of a transformation of agreeing what business says towards say, okay, I'm the CTO. I think this is the way we should do it because I'm the most professional and experienced tech person in the company. If you don't want to do it this way, then perhaps we need to part ways because I'm not actively doing it the wrong way. And it's, in my opinion, wrong way, not in an absolute way. You're right. You could work. So, yeah.
But it's sticky, right? So it's inappropriate. It feels like wrongdoing if you were to commit to it in good faith, right? Because it is so anathema to your
and then I can't be responsible.
Yeah.
I think it's also like I don't immediately, if people push things on me, I sometimes do things that I think is not that good. I'm not fighting every fight that there is no longer. I was a very fight, but I would what you said.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that early on in my career, when I was being groomed as a manager or a leader, sort of like growing in one direction, but not really clear whether it's going to be a bubble this way or bubble that way relationship. We are constantly, I don't know if I had the luck or misfortune to be constantly stuck in the kinds of companies that were growing very fast, but usually through a non-technical acquisition.
Yep.
And then there were usually that sort of cost center mentality towards tech, where putting pressure on the department provided very good results, but resulted in burnout. So it resulted in the kind of behavior and consequences that I do not approve of. And then to be asked to repeat another such cycle, I always struggled with like that particular of I have now experienced it firsthand to know that my gut feeling and the data suggest that this is not a good, ethical, sustainable way of working, and we need to slow down. And usually it's that slowing down conversation that really caused a lot of friction in stakeholder meetings, or just nurturing, client versus financially savvy, tech savvy decision makers. And we just kept, hot potato passing around the decision making power of, are we, this person can say no, but they can't say yes. That person says yes, but they will never make a decision unless there's a unanimous or majority vote beneath them. And sort of that sort of acquisition-led decision-making void was what I had to sort of learn to navigate early on in my career. And it was usually the most unethical decisions that left the biggest scars regarding, well, it works and we're running out of money, so can we push this button one more time?
If you're a younger person, you often go with those unethical things because you don't want to lose anything or something like that. The older you get, the more you actually let's say focus or put some weight on those ethical things. So today
you don't have a immune response.
I don't do
right?
that.
So as you get older, you develop an immune response and say, no, that's like, I can just tell from my gut that this is going to be a no from me. Like, it's not even right. So because when you're younger, you fight about your boundaries because you get carried away in that sort of adrenaline, that hustle mentality, that commitment to a vision, to a product, to a mission. But really what you need to do is to just declare your boundaries and say, no, sorry, this is my boundary because it's my boundary. Not because I want to win an argument, but this is my boundary. I'm sorry. I can't help you. And that's very difficult to make that growth transition.
Okay. Let's go through the next statements. So 2 statements, actually, I want to quickly discuss, or 3, from Kaloyan. Kaloyan says first, what managers are paid for to make decisions. What you would quickly say about that one?
No.
I agree to say no.
Agreed. It's also a no from me. Sorry, Kaloyan.
It is maybe, let's say, oftentimes business people think like that. So we pay some other managers to make decisions for us, which we actually delegate decisions away. But in reality, especially for the topic of today's CTO, I think you are a little bit more than just a decision maker. You are someone who actually then be a tour guide on this journey. The ambassador, as
that's well put.
Stefan said. So I think that is the obvious thing, but internally, this is the reason why we talk about today, it's a little bit more complicated than this, right? But I'm not sure, Kaloyan, was it really like a full statement, or was it like a little sarcastic statement? I don't know. So sometimes it just do some sarcasm sometimes. So so they have the next.
I would split it up in 2 things, just very short. My notepad too short, but first, I think you're responsible for that decisions are made. So I would be say, someone says, Stefan, you're responsible that our decisions are made. Then yes, I will either make them or delegate them or push people to make them or whatever. And I'm also feel very, I feel I'm responsible. I own decisions. I own every decision that's made in my department. So if the junior developer makes a decision, I own it. If a senior developer makes a decision, good or bad, I own it. So I, as a manager, as a CTO, I'm paid to own all the decisions that are made in my department. And I'm the one who's responsible for that decisions are made. So that's the way I would phrase it.
is again about accountability as well, because you're actually accountable for those decisions. It's not the CEO, or the CEO as well on a higher level, but first of all you, because you are actually the executive level, which is responsible for that. And the next one was, Kalyan again, a good decision is good only in retrospect.
First, I'd say a decision is a good one when it's made. Decisions that are not made can be perfect, but are not good. Otherwise, yeah, the problem is always, one of the central problems in software development, I think, is because of what we discussed before about living with the decisions you make, the challenge is looking into the future. And we can't look into the future because otherwise I would play the lottery. I don't play the lottery because I can't look into the future, obviously. So yes, every decision in the end is good in retrospect or not, because we can't, I can't anticipate the future.
That's
I
true.
try to, but I can't.
But I think the idea behind the statement, or is what comes to my mind, is that once you have made a decision and things often turn out to be not, let's say, ideal in the beginning, especially in the transition phase, if you want to change something, sometimes it doesn't feel, oh, maybe it wasn't the right decision, there's doubt and those kind of things. And then later on in retrospect, you might think that, oh, it was actually good that we changed something. Maybe this is the kind of statement he was.
But it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because it can also completely, it can depend on your sensitivity to judgment and to sort of your scarcity to abundance balance. Because I can also say that disastrous decisions are also good, because they showed me that that's not a viable option. So from then onward, I will never make this decision again, and I'll make sure to
I wanted to leave this company anyway, so this disaster just speeds. I mean, it's not all is good.
But from a perspective of inviting experimentation, inviting mistake, like you need to be comfortable with the mistakes you make, right? So you need to, if you really want to take data-driven decision making seriously, you need to be comfortable with all the mistakes, with all the decisions that have turned out not to be very good, because otherwise you reject them or you might filter them out, and that can negatively impact your future decision making space, or at least where you look for decisions. Or you might just ignore them and continue making them. Like a lot of people think, if I ignore the decision I made, the next decision I'll make will be very different from that, right? Like it's a very dangerous bias to make as a leader.
Going through the next one, we're getting more comments right now, so we maybe speed up the things a little bit regarding comments. Kalyan again asked, no, it's a statement.
I see no question mark.
Yeah. Regex, no question mark. Following the people first principle, letting go of people will always be one of the hardest things to do. So he's actually agreeing to what we say or said. So that's probably what most people would think in that moment. Then we have Anton N is asking a question. How do you cope with imposter syndrome, Stefan?
Might be a bit vague question. So let's like constrain it down to a technology leader.
Yeah, to imposter CTO.
Like
I would not think too much about that.
Your self-doubt about your ability to lead, let's say.
Then lead. I think it's you should do more things instead of getting into this Kopfkino thingy. That's not good. I think yes, sometimes this arises, but you need to ask yourself. I think, is this I'm a really an imposter or am I not? You know, and I think if you deliver, and it's difficult perhaps in the beginning, especially you have been promoted to a position, you're not sure, can I do this, can't I do this? I think if you deliver things, if you make decisions, and at the point when you deliver things, you come to the conclusion that you're the right person in that position, you know, and it's a little bit too to the CTO role discussion in the beginning, about the Choi thing and stuff. I think the company does not care how you define the CTO role as a CTO. The company cares that things are working.
Yeah.
Features are developed, platform is stable, whatever the company, everything is secure, data is backupped. That's what people expect you, and they don't care too much about your role decision. And if we take the role decision as something internal to development and project it to imposter syndrome with something internal to you, I'd also say the majority of the company does not care if you have imposter syndrome or not. So I would not. I know it's not. It's a feeling, and it's not controllable in that way because it comes and goes. But I'd say don't pay too much attention to imposter syndrome. Try to do things, and the way, if you do things successfully, then I think this will go away. It might be the reason that you're not doing enough, and it might be that you're very good and you're very active. Sometimes the problem is what I see with developers in general is that because they don't see impact, they are told to do something, they do it, they don't see the impact, they don't see a positive impact. And that might also lead to imposter syndrome if you do not see the results. And also sometimes for CTO, you don't directly see the results of what you're doing, and but if you see the results of what you're doing,
keep doing.
Like you have a survey. Not enough CTOs do surveys. I tell every CTO, do surveys. Marketing does surveys all the time. Do surveys. Like send a mail. What's code quality? Good, bad. I quit. What's the three like? That's by Al Bundy. What's it like? No, sorry. But good, bad, I quit. That's the three options for code quality. And ask the people, and then you see you do something and code quality goes up, or you have they rate you. Sometimes ask if you're a manager, team lead, ask the team how good you are, and they should anonymously rate you, and then they will probably tell you you're better than you expect you are. So sometimes my clients are surprised by HR feedbacks where everyone thinks they are great. Like developers think CTO is great, and so try to make things real. And connect it to reality, and I think that helps with imposter syndrome.
That's very good advice. Actually, this is worth a big post or even article. That especially feedback is often helping you to get this self-confidence or build up self-confidence.
Yeah.
And even if you know in that moment that you maybe fail to to deliver to specific qualities, exactly how you fail, and you can start to improve, and you see a clear goal, so the anxiety is gone because now you know what's wrong and now you can work on that. But the anxiety is the problem of imposter syndrome. Yeah. You are afraid of something and you are afraid of asking about it. Yes. So you sit there and become more afraid and more afraid, which can lead on some point even to burnout because you start to lose control because you don't do anything anymore. And that's actually the missing key there. That's a great answer.
And whenever they did this, the feedback was much better than they expected. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Anton, please leave us some feedback in this case, if this was a good answer or not, or it actually helped you or not, right? Okay, next one is Thomas again. Are there other things than decisions what comes to the CTO role? Stefan, what do we say?
I think one thing that's often neglected is vision and strategy. Sometimes it's tied into the problem that the company has no strategy and no vision, or a very vague one, or a very unhelpful one, and so tech also has no vision or no strategy. But I think a CTO role, the CTO should have a vision and a strategy. And for me, the vision is always a golden place in the future, self-evident. You don't need to explain why that's great. It's great. It needs to be self-evident. A vision does not need to be explained. If you need to explain your vision, you're doing it wrong. And my example is often the vision is might be a company offsite, hiking offsite, and the vision is barbecue in the evening at the sea. That's the vision. It's self-evident. Everyone wants to go there. Everyone wants to be happy. And the strategy is how do we get there? Left of the mountain, right on the mountain, or at the river. There is always many ways to reach the vision, And your strategy is the one way you decide is the best way to reach your vision. You drop all the other stuff, like there might be 5 ways to the goal, and you're the CTO, you make the decision with input from the others, however you arrive to this strategy. It's not that you sit in 6 months in your room and come up with a strategy, but whatever you come up with the strategy is the decision, what route to choose. And you might not go left of the mountain because people will fall off. You will not go at the river because people are going swimming and fishing, and you will never arrive at the sea at the barbecue. So you choose the route right to the right of the mountain. And this is something that's, I think, is very important. Having a vision, a very clear and simple vision, and a strategy that gets you there. And that's also something that's important to the CTO role that I often see neglected.
That's great. Yeah, vision, which leads then to shared goals. Where, this is the goal, is the vision actually, but to storyteller. So that's which comes to my mind. Sometimes you are a storyteller as a CTO.
Always.
This is how I learned to talk so much. It's about selling someone the story, the vision you have in your mind, right, and make others demanding to get there as well. This is the example you said with the barbecue. So to really say, this is where we want to go. Now let's go, everyone, and we will go that. We will do that together. So I don't delegate it to you to get there. We're going there together. But this is the vision. Everyone is important for this journey. To arrive there. And this is actually what you do with all the technical people, and of course you translate that to all others as well. So your mission is actually as well your job to translate that vision not only to the developers but as well to the business people, so that the business people will give you time and money and enough runway to actually get to that side, because the business departments, they don't own money themselves. They have budgets, and you need to make sure that those budgets are then there, and you actually sell this vision to the people, like investors, business persons, the CEO, whoever, that you actually can start that journey. And that's a cool point. Good. We have a last question. It is from Surya Husal. Please write to me if I pronounce that wrong, but that's a question. What sorts of umbrella and pyramidal, I don't know that word, approach to CTO fellows? By umbrella approach, I mean inclusive, and pyramidal approach mean hierarchical approach.
So Surya did DM me a little bit of a follow-up on the question. He's an engineer with a very much focused product leadership role. Like the way I understood the question, Surya, please DM me, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do you share decision-making power or decision-making responsibility when you're let's say the product leader or the tech lead or the engineering leader or the product manager, product owner, or the most senior engineer, and you have to make key decisions, and there's, let's say, 5 people involved or 3 people involved who have like this departmental split going on. And maybe the gut reaction would be, well, let's get a common denominator into the room, which would be their boss, which would be the CTO, who definitely doesn't want to be in the room. Right? So how do you navigate sort of those kind of situations? And Surya, please let me know if I mischaracterized the situation in any way.
As a CTO, I think it's very important, like something like I said before, I push decisions as much down as possible. And to tie it in with the vision thing, I think it's very important, something I call automatic decision making or automatic management. If you have a clear vision and a clear strategy in place, and you have a good culture in place, then that's kind of automatic management, which means people can make decisions on their own. Like if people know my strategy is right of the mountain to the sea, and they come to a fork in the road, and there's left and right. Well, if it's right to the mountain, they will choose the right way. They go right instead of left. If they know we go through the mountain, over the mountain to the sea, that's a strategy to reach a vision. And they need to make a decision. Should I choose trekking shoes or sports shoes? They will choose trekking shoes. So when the vision and the strategy is clear and the engineering culture is clear, I think there is already a lot of alignment going on, which makes decisions. On one hand, people can make decisions in the right way you as CTO would expect them to do them, and also decisions are kind of happening automatically. You know, if I take what Surya says in meeting, there are different people, and if there is a strong vision and a strategy and a culture in place, then people are. I think you can be very inclusive because people are already aligned. But if people are not aligned, it's very difficult, and it's a lot of work to be inclusive or to come up with an inclusive decision. Because every decision means you need to align all the people all the time because they are unaligned. But if you have a great vision and a great strategy and a great culture and other things in place, people are already aligned, and the inclusive approach is much easier to I think, you know. So it depends. I'm very inclusive person, I think. At least I make some decisions on my own, but I'm very open to. Sometimes people come to me and say, Stefan, that's a bad idea. Then I ask why. They tell me, and I say, yeah, it's really a bad idea. So, but I think it depends a lot on the surroundings. It's not solvable. This question is not solvable, I think, in this in the space of the meeting. But
if you had a gut feeling that there is something wrong, but you can't put your finger on it, like if Surya had a gut feeling that there needs to be something improved about our way that we decision make, how would you audit? How would you check that the problem is cultural, that it is an engineering culture problem? How would you audit that? How would you litmus test areas of improvement?
I would encourage the team to come up with a solution. Like if I would not try to solve that problem. Like if someone, I encourage people to be transparent, to speak up, to talk about their expectations, especially to talk about their expectations. So I could say something like, my expectation is we are inclusive with decisions here. Like, what are you thinking? If this is something that bothers him. So talk about expectations and what you expect of people and how things are going and should go. And then this can be cleared up because everyone in the room has expectations in the group, but no one is talking about their expectations. But then on some magical way, people should reach a conclusion without talking about their expectation. That's not going to happen. So I as a CTO, I encourage them to be transparent, solve it on their own. And, you know, it's always like, oh, daddy, can you solve this for me? I try to get involved as late as possible. People should really come up with their.
2 weeks ago,
I help them perhaps, and but I would rather help them.
2 weeks ago, I have posted something about that. You should aim for the negative opinions, because it's often like it's often like you join a meeting and you want to share a mission or say, hey, we want to integrate several new qualities, and TDD is a technical implementation we want to have down to the operational layer. And you sit there and you take a look at 10 people watching you. You say, do you have any feedback? They're still watching you. Then they're watching to left and right. Hopefully it's not asking me, right? So this is a very bad thing to happen in that moment. So what you should do in that moment, you can't just go out and say, hey, do you like it, everyone? Everyone, yeah, great. In their mind, they have like, oh, when is this guy leaving? I just want to continue with my work. And this is what you should avoid. In that moment, what I really like is to provoke them a little bit. And this is something which is really working. Ask for the negative things. Ask the people why they don't like it right now. So just override the determination or the perception and really ask, I know you don't like it, what is it? And then when the first one is coming up, the second one is coming up, and then you have status quo and you can work from that moment, and they have then the ownership and not you anymore, because you don't want to have the ownership for that.
Oftentimes, maybe to tie it back to Thomas's question, or who was it regarding imposter syndrome?
Anton. Anton N.
Anton. It was Anton. Yeah. Sometimes you can't overcome imposter syndrome because you're afraid to ask the question. So the feedback would be positive, but you're biasing the question towards, is everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or my idea might not be good enough in this meeting. Like
Yes.
my idea might not be good enough, but you will not learn if your idea is good enough without asking.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the question you ask should also encompass all possibilities, right? So don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to sugarcoat it by only asking, hey, this is the product. You know, everybody knows you're late. Everybody knows you cut some corners, and then you ask, is it okay? That's not what people want to talk about. People want to talk about, we made some compromises. Is that a problem? Like, I can tell you're not super happy with it, but is this meeting the bar? Like, how far away are we? Right? So how much would you pay for this? Not, is it okay? How much would you really pay for this? Like, would you pay X? Would you pay so much as our clients are paying for this? We have certain standards in our company. Does this meet the standard? You know, ask that. You know, look for the real, transparent, objective, if you can, answer. But allow that answer to come forth from the question. Because I know what imposters are doing, or, you know, self-imposed imposters. They are asking the safe question so that they can follow up with a less safe question, so that they can follow up with, and then there's this drilling effect going on. And by the third question, the one that really matters, everybody was like, yeah, like, I need to, like, can we? And that just exhausts people, right? So just get to the point, try to be transparent as much as possible, and then if it's not enough, refocus. That's much more useful. Don't barrage. I really like your, Stefan, when you mentioned, you know, surveying. Like, if you want feedback, just survey people. One of the things I do for coaching engagements, I always start off with a survey, and they're always surprised. Generally, they're always surprised. Not only that I sent a survey, you know, I the coach, the data guy, I sent out a survey. You know, I'm not gonna look at their what do they use, Linear B dashboard. No, I'm just gonna send out a survey. I'm just gonna talk to people, and then they're surprised usually that the survey is overwhelmingly positive, and the bits that are not positive are immediately actionable. They're always surprised that the actionable feedback was always in front of them. It was always available. You just had to ask. And you just had to ask in the right balance.
Break the ice.
Yeah.
I have
so
one
many
minor
good topics
point,
today.
One minor point about the Surya meeting and about what Adrian, what you said. I sometimes have CTOs who think people that don't like to come to my meetings. And then I say, probably the meeting is not for them. So if you push a meeting on people, might it be the CEO, CTO, head of product, whoever you are, usually you're in a position of power in some way, and you push a meeting on people and they don't come or don't like to come, then probably the meeting is not for them. So if Surya feels like this meeting is not helping them because they want to make a decision or be introduced to a decision or some other way, and they don't get out, if the people in the meeting don't get out, in this case Surya, get out of the meeting, what they want from the meeting, then you're doing the meeting wrong. Then you're forcing a meeting on people, and the meeting should always be, there should be something for the people in the meeting. That's just a minor point, but I think that's an important one.
Mm-hmm. Really, really great answers and topics and discussion today. I really like that. One last comment, which is just a comment, and then we go to the next topic in the agenda. And Anton just gave us some feedback that it was definitely helpful, talking about the imposter syndrome. And at this point, there is no achievements yet to get a feedback. So probably it's a bit of a pessimistic view of that, as far as I understand it.
That in itself is also a problem, right? So if your process does not give you quick feedback on anything you're doing, leadership, okay, if it's going to be long-term strategic outcomes for the company that will take like a 3-year time horizon, sure, I believe you on that. But if it's about your leadership style, how you listen to people, how you make them feel heard, how you include their, share your decision-making power. You can get feedback on that within a week, within a day, within an hour, right? Like that. Do not ask for feedback at the end of the project.
No.
It's too late. It's too late.
Yes.
Ask for feedback during the project, before the project. We're about to start a new project. Which of the feedback we had some one-on-ones? Which of the feedback should we start on immediately? Start from that position. You already have enough data to act on it, but you need to be able to act on it. Do not use this project as, it's set in stone. I will gather data on the end of the project so that then I can apply it on the next project. It's too late.
Yeah.
And then the imposter will just grow and just eat you.
If you really don't get any viable feedback, you have asked the wrong questions, or you have tried to avoid questions in that moment you don't want to hear, maybe. But there is
or the
always
meetings are
something
wrong.
you can improve. Always.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Needlessly anxious here.
Yeah, needlessly anxious, or the meetings are wrong. Like, you should have the most collaboration, not non-working meetings, not reporting meetings, but collaborative meetings with the people who you have relationships with, professional relationships. So you should care about them and they should care about you. If the reason you can't get feedback is that because you're constantly stuck in meetings with people that don't care about you, stop going to those meetings.
Yes.
The right meeting will find you. Clear your calendar. The right meeting will find you.
Yes.
Don't just make meetings for the sake of meetings.
And don't just what you said, Dennis. Just one point. I don't how to emphasize this. Don't do reporting meetings. Don't do status meetings. If there's an email that you might be able to ignore is enough for the status update, then do it. Don't have a meeting for this. Don't waste time on reports and status meetings.
No status and reporting meetings if you're on that up-down communication. And if you're a first-time leader, please, no validation meetings. No meetings where you say, this is my decision, is everybody okay with it? Please stop having those meetings.
You have decided.
You can get feedback. Hey, here's the process. I'm going to make a decision. I want to hear your thoughts. Like 5 brains, everybody, that'll produce the best decision. Once I have enough data, I will make the decision.
You destroy yourself if you
but once you make the decision, once you make the decision, especially if you then are tempted to bubble it up to your superior to ask for permission, absolutely stop doing that. Just trust yourself. Let the data tell you whether it was the right decision. Not ask for validation from your superiors or from the bubbling side, because that'll just undermine, first of all, your confidence, your authority before you even start the project. And it will present you in a light where you need constant supervision, which is not really what you set up for when you accepted the role as a leader, right? So be very careful about that. It's better to make the decision and live with the consequences and then act on them responsibly. Take accountability for your decisions, rather than trying to feed that anxiety, that void in your gut by seeking validation, seeking way too many people's opinions, especially if they're detached from the project.
Good. In regarding of time, we have half an hour left. Let's go with topic 3 of 5. There was CTO in smaller and larger organizations. What comes to your mind, Stefan, in this case?
Well, it really depends on the job, but I think, or what I have a lot. Well, in general, it's more in smaller. I think it's more hands-on, and in large, it's more strategic, kind of obvious. I think, but whenever I say obvious, that's also a red flag, because if you think something obvious, it's obvious not obvious. So then, saying obvious is a red flag. But I think it's kind of obvious. I think the interesting thing here is more, at least where I have knowledge, is in fast-growing startups. Most of my clients, I have some clients from larger companies that probably everyone knows, but usually not CTOs, and it's some time of VP. But most of them are fast-growing startups. And in a fast-growing startup, it's the challenge often is not the role in a small and a large organization, but the changing of the role the fundamental change of the role every 6 months. Like from being someone who writes code to someone hiring, to someone building teams, to someone defining culture, to someone building the strategy and vision. Like you have rapid changes. That's kind of often the challenge with my clients, at least.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rapidly changing role. I think it's much more changing than other roles in a startup.
For clients like that, sort of CTOs who are constantly changing, in your experience, what's the most profound transformation that you helped facilitate?
I think there are some transformations, like some stepping stones. The first stepping stone is obviously you're not doing things, but you tell people to do things, or you encourage people, you structure, that's the first thing that they need to learn to delegate. And then the second is then to manage through people. Like you have a head of development who manages, or you have a team lead who manages a developer, and you want to get results or changes, not results, but changes, but you can't tell the developer to change.
Yeah.
You need to change an organization where you don't talk to the people. You can have all hands, and you can have coffee, CTO coffee, so skip level meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of a challenge. And then this third thing would be transformative, being executive and being no longer where then tech is just a minor thing, or the details of tech are just a minor thing. Yeah. But doing things on your own, managing people, managing managers, and then being an executive.
I would quickly add another opinion regarding that topic. I think this was my initial motivation is for this agenda topic is that oftentimes on LinkedIn we were talking about what is a CTO in a small company or very small company startup, and in large companies there are many voices out there who tell that you are actually not a CTO in a small company because it's basically a business role, a full-time business role, stuff like that. And others say, but CTO can be basically hands-on. And the most small business CTOs I personally know, they are mostly hands-on. They don't even realize that they are business persons, and they are still having that role. And I'm not sure if this is actually wrong to say that, because personally I think that the CTO does have a wide variety of things you can do, and I think the mission in a small company is vastly different than in a large company. And so oftentimes you have multiple visions in larger companies, multiple things you follow at the same time, while a smaller company just try to get as a company to the next big step somehow, and you as a CTO try to get everything together. Of course, oftentimes you are in the very same moment the VP or the engineering manager, and you need to have those multiple hats, but still I'm thinking you are still a CTO in that moment, because which will come in the next topic as well, you are probably and hopefully an accountable person for that as well, which means that you should do that not only because someone is telling you to artificially have a vision. You should own this vision by having shares in the company in some way or another, where you actually do that, which shares not in the terms of having company shares, but having some stakes inside the company, which actually matters. So how can you pull something if it doesn't matter to you? You have no why in that moment. Maybe it's a little bit weird what I'm saying right now, but this is what comes to my mind when I think of small business CTOs. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts there?
I would come back to to the very, very beginning. If you can't bubble up tech stuff, you're the CTO.
Yeah.
That would be very simple, but as I said, I'm a simple guy. So that would be my guiding light, and whatever your title is. And you can have many roles that you can in smaller, and that's also something that in smaller organizations you have more roles, and in larger organizations you have less roles. Your role might be more diverse in a larger company, but you have more different roles kind of in a small company. And hello, Christian. We had a discussion a lot, which was a very, very excellent engineer, and I assume an excellent manager now. And we had a lot of discussion about roles, about heads, because when I joined the company, I was the CTO, but I was also Scrum Master, and I was for some time an interim product manager, product head. So sometimes, and then I explained to people that I have different hats. And then people started to ask me, Stefan, what hat are you wearing now? And then I explained, now I'm wearing the CTO hat. Now I'm wearing the Scrum Master hat. Now I'm wearing the head of product hat. Now I'm, so yeah, you have, and I think you have more hats in a smaller company from an individual contributor, but also, whereas you have, as a CTO, you have one hat in a large organization, but that hat has more feathers on it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree on the multiple hat theory, to be honest. You can't avoid that, and it's necessary. And the more you grow, the less you need the multiple hats, and the more you should get into the delegation quadrant. And then on some point later in time, you solely focus on the business part, because the larger you get, the more necessity is there actually, or the actual requirement to have a full-time business person who's really driving the main vision and the tech vision forward. And there are so many others, let's say, reporting to you who will make then decisions for the specific business contexts on behalf of you. You still own those decisions, as you said in the beginning, but it's, this is basically the difference. But especially on LinkedIn, especially in the audience, the vast majority of CTOs and people who want to become those are in the small business area. So please focus on that one and not on becoming the next CTO of Apple or something like that. This is a little bit, don't dream too big.
When you want to be the next CTO of Apple, I think they could use a good CTO again. I know.
Let me fill out the application.
But so if you want to be that, go for it. I encourage people to.
Yes, but what I mean by that is,
I don't
want to exactly, but because this leads then in this up and down of imposter and Dunning-Kruger again. Yes. So on some point, because it's about 0.000 will make it up to that level, and you don't become, because you are now a engineer, maybe senior engineer in a small company, you don't make that leap. You don't make that leap, and you should not make that leap. And you should, go step by step and have a clear goal. So I am working with people who want to do this, and I know one is in the audience as well. Do it step by step, right? And try to make one or achieve one goal after another, and get enough confidence, because it is very cold water the first time you make a decision where money is behind that. Not just, hey, what's a tech thing? I can change it tomorrow, or maybe we introduce a bug. No, you introduce something which affects other people, which affects the money, not your money, other money, right? And it can fail. And this is something not everyone is able to do just on day one, right? Do it step by step. Maybe team lead role, then go to engineering management, and then try to aim for CTO. Because
and get a coach.
You can coach.
Sorry for the pitch, but
no, it's
okay. We're all coaches here.
Sorry.
There we go.
Amazing CTO is very amazing. So okay, let's go to the next one. I think. Sorry,
you want to say obvious CTO?
I mean, I just wanna add that when it comes to small companies, especially small startup CTOs or chaotic CTOs where the role keeps shifting. Those are usually my clients, and they usually struggle with a combination of two problems. One is that the company grew from a group of founding engineers, and the founding engineers start exhibiting behavior where they start bubbling decisions to a new hire, usually a product person. And sometimes there's a culture clash there about the most, let's say, historically invested people not being CTOs, not being in the C-suite. And that can really tear a culture apart. That's one aspect that they're dealing with. The other aspect, this is quite common, is that they mistake management for delegation. Right? So delegation, I understand delegation as I'm delegating power. I'm delegating the responsibility of, I'm allowing you to make this decision. Whereas management is, we need to build something together, and the building process is complex. So there is some mutuality to how decisions are made, and I'm involved in that, rather than I'm being detached from that, which is more on the delegation side. So I think that's, for a chaotic environment, for a CTO, for a startup CTO, or for somebody who is growing into that role, not of their own choice, that can be very, very difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
Just due to lack of terminology, or maybe their gut feeling doesn't pick up on the nuance, just due to lack of experience, or maybe they have a lot of things going on right now, and they just don't have the mind space to really see it for what it is.
Okay. Second last topic. The executive perspective, accountability and liability. When we had our briefing phone call, the first one, Stefan, we were talking about, or I mentioned to you that in my opinion, the CTO role is connected to accountability and liability, which is a different thing than responsibility. Responsibility is something yourself take in order to take the responsibility for something in your hands and execute it. So you do it for yourself in order to get it done. Otherwise, you can't get it done. It's a form of ownership in that moment. Accountability is something which is basically put up on you because you are a C-suite member, right? So you are on that level which is actually accountable and liable. This is the least used term for the CTO role, but in many companies, and I for myself, I am liable. So if I do something severely wrong, it is not just the company, it's me as well who, could be sued in some case, right? I know this is not, especially the liable aspect, is not always the case in every constellation, in every company, but the accountability on some point is. And I would like to know your both opinions about what you think about that when I say that, in my opinion, a definition of a CTO as well is that you're actually an accountable person at least. Otherwise, you're just an engineer with a fancy title. What do you think about that? Dennis, your turn.
I mean, we keep having this conversation about craft and engineering, and really, I like Dave Farley's take on this. Like he just, engineering is craft with data. When you're really, following the scientific method of trying to improve things, measure things, and really take your measurements seriously. So you're not just measuring things for the sake of measuring things, but you're actually measuring to improve process, to find issue, to create problems. Like scientists are usually people who create problems, and engineers are the ones that are trying to fix them. Regarding responsibility, well, not responsibility, because you picked accountability and liability especially. I think nowadays, with the advent of like freelancing and remote work, I think just the physical distance dilutes the value of it, or at least it just makes the playing field a little bit larger, where some people might choose not to be accountable in favor of being engaged short term with an engineering team. But for CTOs especially, I think, I'm not buying into this whole fractional CTO idea. I think if you're a fractional CTO, if you call yourself a fractional CTO, what you're really doing is coaching the C-suite, like you're advising the C-suite. You're accountable for their growth, or at least you're accountable to making sure that they have the best stage for growth, and that you help them hold themselves accountable. But as an engineer, it's nowadays, it's quite common that technical decisions outlive you, your time at the company.
I'm not
right.
that
So
old.
it's no, I don't mean it in that way, but there will be decisions made. Okay, what framework, what technology, what database, and if the average tenure of an engineer is 18 months, it's possible that those technical decisions will simply outlive that tenure. So calling that kind of person not liable or not accountable, I think that just speaks of a lack of feedback frequency, right? So I think if you strive for continuous delivery, if you strive for continuous improvement, then it's enough that you're accountable to the feedback cycles that you are committing to. I think that's enough. Unless you're the CTO and you can't bubble any decisions and you're there to stay, or somebody more architectural, or somebody more invested into long-term skill building or long-term process building, or if part of the software actually has a hardware component, which would automatically give it a sort of a slightly longer time horizon. So I would split it that way. I don't have a straight answer to it. I would just split it that way. I'm saying if your role is continuous improvement, then accountability and liability to that is enough. Even if you're an engineer, even if you're a team lead, if you're an manager, there's a lot of data that you can gather, a lot of feedback that you can gather in a quarter. Like, you don't need to wait 5 years. But CTOs, especially, I would assume your interest is up until the exit, whether that's acquisition or something else. And if you're accountable and ethical as well, then beyond that as well. But then that's a whole nother conversation.
Let the buyer live with my code. Tabula. I think I have two points around, or 3 points. First one, liability. Think about an C-level insurance, cheaper than you think, might be worth it if the company doesn't pay for it. I think about accountability. One point is sometimes CTOs are surprised that they can be fired because the CEO does no longer trust them. I think what they are not, like, you as a developer, you really need to screw up to be fired, more or less. But at a CTO level, accountability is also more like the CEO loses trust and says, I don't trust this person can execute, I need someone else. It's not that typical with CTOs. It's much more with the VP of sales or the VP of marketing. They lose trust. They are like soccer managers.
Product.
We don't trust marketing, but we can't find a marketing department, so we fired the head of marketing, like we fire the trainer of, I don't know, some soccer from I don't know. So that's sometimes surprising that they are a little bit in this soccer trainer role where they can be fired because someone loses trust in them to execute. It might not, so that's surprising, I think, for people around accountability. And another thing about accountability, it also ties to me into professionalism, into being a professional. And the example I have is, like, you go to the CFO and tell the CFO, we're no longer doing double accounting. This year, I don't know the English term, no Jahresabschluss, no accounting for
no yearly report.
We don't do this year. The CFO will tell you, depending on the CFO, but will be very clear that that's not going to happen. So it's not double accounting and other stuff will not stop because it's not professional. It's not. The CFO has some clear understanding, and Enron aside, but CFO has a clear understanding of what professionalism is. And sometimes CTOs don't know what professionalism is, and I think that ties into what you said, Adrian, about saying no. And for me, and everyone needs to decide for themselves. But for me, it's like if someone says we don't do tests for this feature because of pressure. No. I personally think doing tests is professional, and we don't skip that. And then I'm also accountable for the results, but I also need to have some understanding of what it means to be a professional for me, because the role is undefined, to be accountable. So and if someone comes up with bad ideas, do this, and I feel like, no, we don't not doing this. I say no, and then I feel accountable for the results. You know, so that's, I think accountability is also tied into a little bit into professionalism.
But it also ties into influence. Some CTOs don't feel that they have the influence to say no, and then they self-censor before they try. Like, it's really important that you do say no and get challenged on it, rather than avoid being confrontational or avoid being perceived being confrontational just to sort of cater to stakeholder trust.
To me, this ties into, Dennis, into the imposter syndrome again.
Yeah.
You know, and into the feedback topic again, because like if you say no, you assume bad things are happening, but more often than not, bad things are not happening. People respect you more because you say no.
Correct.
You know, and then they trust you more because you say no. They don't trust you less. They trust you more because you say no.
Yeah, so, this is actually when you're really in a position. Now let's speaking of CEO, right? So actually I am a CEO, but I'm calling myself CTO because I have the role of the CTO. But we in our company we don't have the role of the CEO defined because we don't need that right now. So as someone who is responsible in the end for everything and is liable for everything, and you want to pass the responsibility or the accountability to someone, and this person shall take responsibility for that. But it's just saying what you want to hear, and you on some point in time you learn how to read those things between the lines, right? So you can see and you can even smell it 100 meters away that this is something which is actually or someone in that moment who is not credible. Right? So we had that with the term, you need to become credible before you become incredible. And this is actually what it's about. So what is a credible person? So if I tell you something or delegate something to you, and you know in that moment, oh, this won't work, but you don't tell something, you say, oh, great, I will do that. This is abusing the trust. This is what you shouldn't do. In that moment, you should say, no, it won't work. And in this moment, you gain credibility because you have the guts to say something to a superior and say, this won't work, we need to do it differently. And there will no one coming down and saying, I told you something, just do it. That is 20 years ago, maybe the last people were there doing that from the industrial age area. But we are not we are not there anymore. Most people don't do that. Most people expect that you help them to reduce risk in their business. And this is what we should see today, right? Saying no is very important. Can't stress that enough, actually. No CEO wants to have someone who's just, saying what you want to hear. That's nonsense.
I phrase it often as be open and say no. It's not like don't start with the no. Be open, say yes to the idea, no to the implementation. So the CEO wants to do something, and the idea is great, but they often come up with a solution on increasing, on how to do this, and often the solution is not the thing that's a good thing. So it's often good to say yes to the idea, but no to the solution.
Okay. So one thing, we need to hurry up a little bit.
Oh.
Yes, and this is the reason why we're going to the next topic straight for the next 5 minutes. And this is exploring the role of the fractional CTO. The FCTO is something which came up a while ago. It was the interim CTO, it's actually the interim CTO still, but people trendily calling it fractional CTO. And I, for myself, often think that the fractional CTO is not really what I do as CTO. So it is something different. So for me, the fractional CTO is another form of hands-on guiding, coaching consultant for another CTO or CEO who doesn't have a CTO right now and shall take this role as an interim CTO, which comes closer to what it actually is, in my opinion, and takes a role interimly, which is a part of, it affects as well the accountability and liability aspects, because if you are just a hired contractor, you don't have the same level of accountability and liability as a CTO with a typical contract does have. And What are your thoughts? So this just was my first thought. What are your thoughts when it comes to fractional CTOism right now? And what does have this role of an impact for a company? Do you think it's a viable role? Is it even viable to call it CTO, or should rename it or something like that? That was my intention for the point. What do you think, guys? Stefan, let's go ahead.
And it should get better at reading cues. I think it again depends on how you see yourself. I have been a fractional CTO several times without knowing the term. So I was working as CTO, but not full time. And I think if you split it the way that you're working as a CTO, but you're not working full time as a CTO because the company doesn't need it. In my case, it was mostly because I didn't have the time. The companies would have paid as an interim CTO, I guess. But I didn't have the time because I didn't want to. I can't give up coaching. I can't drop clients. So whenever I did it or do it, I also do it sometimes. Would do it in future if someone asked me kindly, because it's not my focus. But if you think you're a CTO and you act as a CTO, but we were just 2 days a week in the office, I think you're a CTO. Like if I act a fractional CTO, I take responsibility. I think about the next CTO, next person next woman or man in this role, and I act accountability. I'm accountable. I act responsibly. It's just that I have less time, and I might drop some topics. That as a CTO, I would do these topics, but as a fractional CTO, I concentrate on what I do. But my role would be the same. But I can see that other people see the fractional CTO role differently, and I totally can see that some people see like you, Adrian, and then I would not call that if you're more of a coach and a consultant, you're not the CTO. But if you're acting like a CTO and just cut the topics, like you say, we would need to, we need to transform the data warehouse to something different. And I don't have the time as a fractional CTO, then this needs to wait 6 months until a new CTO is in. So it depends on how you cut things, I guess. If you cut it this way, I call myself a CTO. If you try to cut it this way, the role to your time, I probably agree, and it's not. That's how I would see it.
Good points, actually. Dennis, what do you think?
I think we should wrap up because you need to go in 2 minutes.
You're right. And you don't want to have the Descript problems, right? For 2 hour streams.
No, I think we'll have them anyway because I don't think we can wrap up that fast. On this topic, I think, I'm biased. I'm a coach. I've been approached for FCTO work, but I always cut it, as Stefan said. I would always say, look, I'm not, if you think I'm a part-time CTO and I'm going to execute on the thing you want to do and you think I'll do it. So if there's a lack of boundaries, I'm not engaging into that relationship because the boundaries are important, right? So the temporality of the relationship does not mean that we can just ignore the lack of boundaries, right? The boundaries need to be there because it needs to be ethically available for the next person who comes along. I can't just do a quick fix and pretend I'm your CTO to do something that your future CTO would disagree with.
Exactly.
So I prefer coaching. Yeah, I prefer coaching with a non-technical founder. I'm always saying I'm advising you until you find a CTO.
Yeah.
And with CTOs, I'm saying I'm helping you be a better CTO. Like I'm very clear on the boundaries, and I try to not overstep and sort of be sort of irresponsibly making decisions or even reaching into the system and making permanent changes to it that might undermine my integrity and make the life of the next person who comes along harder.
Problem.
We can hear you. Hello, 1 2 1 2. It's not a huge problem because we are wrapping up. So if you can't hear us anymore, then
I can hear you again.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Good. Then let's wrap up. I would say, maybe Stefan, one more time. Who are you and what are you doing?
I'm a CTO coach.
Quick pitch.
I'm a CTO coach. You can find me on amazingcto.com. I've written a book, which you can find at CTObook.dev. Yeah, and whenever you want to talk about something, drop me a message on LinkedIn, whatever it is.
And www.amazingcto.com is Stefan Schmidt. Was a great show, really great responses, great way of seeing things. Really enjoyed it today. Right, was a great thing.
Me too, a lot.
Thank you,
Dennis. Who are you, actually? So I saw you multiple times on the streams already. What's going on with you?
I'm an engineering coach focusing primarily on extreme programming and leadership. So I focus more on the middle to bottom vertical. And sometimes that also fits startup CTOs, like the way we just defined it. So the more chaotic role, the more chaotic it is, the more messy, sticky the feedback mechanisms, the processes are. That's my jam. Like that's my target audience, leaders in that space. I don't do CTO strategic exclusive focus as much as you do, Adrian. So Adrian, what do you do? How can we find you?
Oh, that was a quick pitch. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually CTO in my own company doing my own stuff with my own people. But we are helping as well other companies to go those routes. So we joined the journeys and we are actually advisors, those guides for the guides on this journey. To actually make the right steps, right? We give the right intrinsic motivation. We help with the vision. We can, especially I'm focused on really selling those missions to people and then follow through and together with those people helping them when it actually gets hard, right? To build up discipline, as well. This goes down into technical aspects as well, like engineering culture, engineering management as well, but not as like coach for, hey, how you actually type your first test or something like that. I try to avoid those things. Sometimes I do those things, but this is not actually my biggest expertise. I'm more there for the entrepreneurial CTO stuff and helping people to.
I do that. I think that's a big difference between us, because I come in as a sort of multi-practic. Like I can do anything. I can show you how to run meetings. I can show you how to do TDD. I can show you how to design stuff. So I really enjoy that stuff. So it's not to say that it's unavailable, but for some reason I tend to like there is no task that is beneath me aspect of I can teach you how to do X. I won't expect you to sort of learn it by yourself if that is really important for your engineering culture growth. But you did have a TDD coaching workshop today, so that's not entirely accurate anymore, Adrian.
It's true, but let's see. People asked, so I can't do anything. So what shall I say?
Dipping your toe into the space.
Yeah, and of course the blogging stuff. So we do a lot of blogs, you and me, writing a lot, doing a lot of videos on LinkedIn, on we're doing things on YouTube, we're doing things on our blog. We tell very much openly about all those topics, and there is, we try to be very open and talk about what we've learned the hard way, so that you don't need to learn it the hard way. This is the actual idea. Well, actually, I need to go now because I have another session right now. I need to join. Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you so much, Dennis. It was a great show. I hope it won't be the last time we meet on stream or some form of
This was great. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you in the audience, everyone, and have a nice day. See you next Wednesday for CEST again for the next stream. I forgot what it was. Wait a second. What was it? TDD. We were talking about that. TDD and acceptance testing and QA. Okay, so thank you very much. Dennis, could you wrap up the stream?
I will wrap up the stream.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
See you, everyone. I'm off. Goodbye.
Bye, Adrian. Bye. Stefan, thank you once more. This was a really cool conversation. If there's anything else that you would like the audience to know about you, if you want to pitch your book, now is a good time to sort of share your links in the comments. That's where they will find it most quickly.
I share the link. Yeah.
I
also have a newsletter.
And your newsletter. And the website, the newsletter, your book, maybe your LinkedIn, but people will see your LinkedIn on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Who should reach out to you? it's easy to say CTOs in general, but what kind of CTO? You mentioned sort of midway into the episode that you have 3 types: too early, on time, and too late.
Yeah.
So who should reach out to you regarding on time, or sort of on the transition point between too early and on time? Or anybody, and then you determine that in the intro call.
Anybody, if anybody. I will also help people too late. I don't help people too early because I'm not taking money from people that have no problems. But yeah.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share?
No.
Well done.
It was a great
Thank you.
pleasure.
Pleasure. The pleasure's mine. The pleasure's ours. It was great to have you on. For the audience, thank you for being with us. We're going to leave you with a little bit of gentle elevator music that I know you like. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Stefan, thank you.
Bye,
Ciao.
Dennis.